Thank you very much. Nice to be here. Today I'm going to talk about my perspective of what we call the future of the digital infrastructure in properties. There's a lot of things we talk about with productivity because that's we think is the next level or next generation of infrastructure. When we meet property owners or real estate owners, they often say, we are already connected our buildings. And what does they actually mean about that? Is that they have internet connection to the building, have the tenants connectivity, do they have Wi-Fi inside the building? The first question we ask them is, connecting to what? The elevator companies often talk about, for example, Kona. We have connect all the elevators. But to what? To their own cloud or to the property owner's cloud? Digital access company talk about they have connect all the locks. Mobility operators talk about they have connect the parking lots and the EV charger, for example. You have the operation partners that have connect all the HVAC systems and ventilation system or smart metering system to something. And the energy company often talk about they have connect all the smart meterings to the energy company to actually have all the data and steering. So the third thing we think about is how can you own your infrastructure and actually see how you can enable new kind of services with it. So why is this? The historical way is what we say is the first thing you did when you connect to building was actually to connect to access the system to the web. Remote working or remote operate the building. You can actually log into the system inside the building and work with it. And that is one way to see it, and you can get alarm and default detection, etc. But that you didn't connect it, actually. You connect something inside the building that you actually could log into the building. You didn't connect the things inside the building. And for the future, if you want to be like this, what we call a data-driven property management system, or the real estate owner that actually want to own the data and handle the data and get the insight of the data, you need an infrastructure to actually understand how can you connect everything inside your building to get the data, get the integration, have the connectivity to all the things. And then you can actually see how you can enable new kind of application with that kind of data, or what we call the central decision making, or how you can monitorize all the buildings. Because if every building has their own infrastructure, the different infrastructure services, it's very hard to see how you on your property level or the company level actually can manage all your properties. And you actually need higher demand of quality of service. If you're going to collect data and access system, you actually need to think more and more about the quality of services. Because, for example, if you have a central decision support to say, if something is wrong inside the building, you actually need more and more data. And what you saw previously is that this data is not the highest gigabit, but it's a lot of data. If you have a bad connection or you don't get the data, it's very hard to get the central decision making. So you actually need to understand, if I collect 100,000 or million thousands of energy meters every day, how can I actually ensure that I get all the data and actually can see the fault detection, etc. So when you need higher level of data, you actually need a more or better infrastructure. And this is also a way of thinking about when we now more and more see how our buildings is connected to the smart grid. And when you are in the smart grid, you actually see how your buildings now is connected to sun panel, a battery, but also to the grid. And you actually need more and more energy measuring on the side on the grid. You need to measuring the sun panel, you need to measure on the battery, and you actually see what kind of, let's see here, what kind of systems and tenants use that kind of data or the energy inside the building. And this is a whole ecosystem of energy, but it's also a system of data and connectivity, because everything needs to be connected. You need to steer on the exact level of time, hour, perhaps also day. And if you don't have the data and you actually can connect and steer your system inside the building, then you actually have a business loss or something happens in the wrong inside in the building. So data and connectivity is very important in this way. Another part that we see is also, if you don't have a strategy, and I think that a lot of property owners don't have a really good strategy for your digital infrastructure, is that you don't have a good business case. Because if you have 5, 6 buildings, or hundreds of buildings, or 200 buildings, and you have a lot of different systems that is connected, how can you find a business case that you actually don't pay for a lot of different networks with different operators, with different infrastructure, when you actually buy 2 Wi-Fi sensors, 2 Wi-Fi routers, 4 infrastructure, 50 cables inside the building. If you can not connect it all to one digital infrastructure, perhaps you pay for a lot more connection, more cable, more sensor, more network than you actually needed. And if the business model of real estate is to lower your cost and find new revenues, perhaps you need a strategy to see how much could the infrastructure cost and how can you use it for multi-purposes. But also the higher demand on security. When you connect your building to this smart grid, and also when you connect it to more and more tenants, and we talk about wire score here as well, you need to actually understand who have access to your system and data. We see a lot of companies right now that connect everything to the cloud, but actually who is this person that connects to the system? Who have got the right to have the data from the system? And if you have connected an EV charger or something like that, this is a higher security on the country level, that nobody can connect to that battery and is standing on the smart grid. Then you actually need also a strategy to actually who has access to your system and data, who is connected to it at the company level, the user level. And here we think with 5G and productivity is the way that if we have 5G, we have private network, we can actually manage access and write easier. Access to data, access to system, access to building on a more higher and easy way. So, for sum this up, why should we work with digital infrastructure? Don't think about connectivity or that is internet to a building. It's actually, if you have a strategy for your digital infrastructure, that is the way to actually more and more have control of your data and build value. It's also how you can manage infrastructure on local level, central level, and easy to integrate new application and take control of it. But this is also the way of how you actually now can work with cybersecurity and quality of services. Thank you.